Welcome to Poland Daily History with me, Nicholas Richardson. And as the much anticipated counteroffensive by Ukrainian forces against Russian forces gets underway, we thought it would be interesting to consider historical parallels with other major military actions. And I'm delighted to have with me in the studio Adam Starzyński to get the discussion underway. Adam, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Always a pleasure. Now, everybody's been waiting a long time for this much anticipated military action, the counteroffensive by the Ukrainians against the Russian forces. But I mean, this is part of the course when we look at major military actions. There's often a long waiting game.
Absolutely. The build-up phase often lasts as long, if not even longer, than the campaign itself. Here we have had quite a lull since late last autumn, when we remember that we had the Kherson offensive, during which the right bank of the Kherson region was liberated all the way up to the Dnipro River, which now famously, naturally, is flooded. And we also had the Kharkiv region, which was completely liberated in that same time frame. But since then, it's been nearly six months or even more without practically much movement going on along the front lines in Ukraine. The only movement we have really been seeing has been the gradual advance around Bakhmut by Russian forces. But if you take a look at the map, when it comes to territory, it's very little. Naturally, the Battle of Bakhmut has been very bloody for both sides, but if we look at territorial changes, practically none. So now, with this counter-offensive underway, there is quickly a lot of armchair generals who, judging by a picture or two, or the local failure of an offensive in some region, they are very quick to dismiss the entire effort and say that, well, this has started and this has clearly failed, so it's now over. But if we look at other offensives, we can see that usually there is some form of staging phase in which you build up your forces, you conduct all the intelligence gathering that you can, you try to get contacts on the ground to get information about where there are logistic bases, who is exactly cooperating with the occupant, and then you start delivering some pinpoint strikes to take out these crucial targets before the offensive even starts. This is what usually in military parlance is known as shaping operations, and we had been seeing these in Ukraine for a good 3 weeks or so before the offensive even started. We had those probes going into Russia itself in the Belgorod region, trying to draw away Russian troops as much as possible from their main area where they finally struck, which seems to be the Zaporizhia region at the moment. On the other hand, you never know at which phase in an offensive you are. It could turn out that what seems to be the major advance is still just another feint, and that later on the brunt of the forces will be put in somewhere else. Even now, with this offensive having started and the first 7 settlements or so having been retaken in the Zaporizhia region, with the Ukrainian army having advanced around 7 kilometers or so. The battle here is being conducted by a handful of brigades, maybe 3, 4, or 5. The Ukrainian army has, over the winter, prepared and built up well over 35 specially created assault brigades that specialize in breaching operations, and these units have so far not been seen anywhere, so they could be put in at any location and nobody would know. And when we look at parallels in history, there are some that are geographically closer and some that are further away. if we look at those that are close by, then naturally one of them is the big one, naturally, the one that everybody knows about. Maybe it's not exactly the same situation. I'm thinking about Operation Barbarossa here, which happened in 1941, because that was somewhat of a surprise attack against the Red Army. Up until that point, naturally, the Germans and the Russians, they had been allies, but nevertheless, a lot of these things ring true anyway. The Germans, they had been building up their forces along the front lines for months, and it is impossible for the other side not to see what is happening when you gather 3 or 4 million men somewhere. Usually they do leave some traces behind, so to say.